Overwatch 2 was somewhat recently announced, and it got me thinking about modern video game sequels. Sequels are a difficult venture in the games as a service era. Publishers want you to play the same game forever, but also want to sell new versions of that same game to get a massive boost in revenue. They strive to keep gamers playing through consistent content drops and events while relying on in game microtransactions to keep the whole thing going. But when players have so much invested in a single game, why would they want to move on to the next one? It's kind of the Wild West right now as companies try to figure out how to monetize their player base without screwing them over, or at least seeming like they are. So let's take a look at how video game publishers are trying to sequelize. That's a word, right? And see what's working, what isn't, and what direction companies should take moving forward. Fortnite's model is impossible to ignore because, it's Fortnite, and as a game, it's impossible to ignore. It became the top trending topic in the US after its Black Hole event that saw the game taken offline for 24 hours and then relaunched as Fortnite Chapter 2, introduced, for free, an entirely new map, along with a new season of content and an accompanying paid battle pass. This update was heavily praised for refreshing the game, as well as making it easier for new players to jump in. Fortnite is obviously in a more unique position than pretty much any other game in this video, since it's free to play, but this 2.0 style update is still a game changer, and I imagine many other free-to-play titles will follow similar models in the coming months and years. Bungie's attempt at creating a sequel to their popular FPS MMO Destiny has proven to be quite a challenge. The first Destiny launched on consoles in 2014, and Bungie supported the game over the following 3 years with expansions and in-game cosmetic microtransactions, until the release of Destiny 2 in 2017. Destiny 2 was a full-blown sequel, with completely new weapons, new missions, new raids, and the inability for anything from Destiny 1 to be imported into the new game. The community wasn't thrilled about this decision, and their dissatisfaction only grew from there. After an initially positive launch, Destiny 2 players began complaining about the lack of content, along with an array of other issues. The first Destiny launched with similar complaints, but many of the problems were solved or minimized through the several expansions that Bungie put out, most notably the Taken King. Instead of building upon those improvements, however, many felt that Bungie had essentially reverted all the way back to vanilla Destiny 1, ignoring all of the lessons they had learned since then. It's been just over 2 years since Destiny 2 dropped, and in that time, a number of expansions have been released for the game. Bungie has also ended their 10-year contract with Activision early, retaining control of the Destiny IP. Now that they're fully in control of the game, many players are hopeful about Destiny's future, though this next year will be the first real test for Bungie. And what does all of this Destiny 2 drama mean for an inevitable Destiny 3? At this point, it's very unclear. What is clear, though, is that Destiny 2 is a prime example of how not to launch a sequel to a game as a service. It's finally getting on track now, but the road there has been long and painful for both Bungie and the game's player base. Activision is no stranger to video game sequels. Aside from the aforementioned Destiny 2, they're probably most well known for their flagship franchise, Call of Duty. It's the highest selling non-Nintendo video game series of all time, with over 300 million copies sold since the franchise first started in 2003. It's an annualized franchise, with a new iteration getting released every single year. There is little to no story continuity between the different sub-series within Call of Duty, and there is no carryover of progression from game to game. Each title is self-contained, and this has resulted in extensive splitting of the player base. Despite this, Call of Duty continues to post massive sales numbers every year. The series has had its ups and downs, but it's maintained immense popularity among its dedicated fanbase, and most players don't seem to mind the need to purchase a full-priced game every year, on top of the in-game microtransactions that have become synonymous with the series. While the gameplay is very similar with each release, there are a number of differences that separate each title, and that seem to be enough for most gamers. As non-consumer friendly as it is, Activision has clearly struck gold with Call of Duty, and it doesn't look like it's going to dry up anytime soon. Debatably even more egregious than Call of Duty is EA's FIFA franchise. In addition to releasing a new, full-priced game every year, there are often very few differences between consecutive entries. Despite this, FIFA remains the 5th highest-selling video game series of all time, clocking in at 260 million copies as of last year. The game is also known for its highly profitable FIFA Ultimate Team, which sees gamers buying soccer players through in-game currency and real-world money by using a randomized card pack system. Worse, these players are only unlocked for that year's game, meaning that next year, you have to play slots all over again to try to get the players you want. As sketchy as that sounds in a post-Battlefront 2 world, Ultimate Team has remained core to EA's business, accounting for over a quarter of their total net revenue. This use of free-to-play monetization tactics inside a premium title has been heavily criticized, but the bottom line speaks louder than Reddit. Regardless of how you feel about it, FIFA is in a unique situation, one that few franchises have even been able to approach. You can't argue with results, but I'm thankful this style of predatory monetization and sequelization is minimized or absent in most other games. Finally, I want to finish up by looking at Overwatch 2. It's a sequel that's not even out yet, but I think it stands out rather significantly from many others on this list. It's a different world for sequels than it was 10 or even 5 years ago, and Blizzard is trying to adapt to that. They've seen the triumphs and struggles that other companies have had with releasing sequels to long-running games, and they appear to be trying to learn from the mistakes others have made. It's been 3.5 years since the release of Overwatch, and it looks like it'll be close to 5 by the time Overwatch 2 is finally dropped. The core multiplayer gameplay that made Overwatch so great will be the exact same in the sequel, and in fact, all of the new heroes and maps that will be coming with Overwatch 2 will be given to Overwatch 1 players free of charge. UI improvements will also be identical for both games, and Blizzard has made it clear that they don't want to split the player base, unlike Call of Duty and FIFA. They've also said that any unlocked skins from the first Overwatch will carry forward to Overwatch 2, unlike the transition from Destiny to Destiny 2. But what then is incentivizing gamers to spend the money to upgrade? Well, most notably, Overwatch 2 will introduce a new exclusive PvE mode with story-based co-op missions. It will also give players upgraded and modernized character designs, though nothing will be drastically different from the original game, and none of the changes will give competitive advantages in PvP. And that's honestly about it, at least as far as we know. If you have Overwatch 1 and don't want to upgrade, you'll be able to keep playing all of the same maps and heroes that Overwatch 2 players have with no additional charge. And honestly, I think this is the best path forward for the game. It's one of the first of its kind to keep its player base together, and that's commendable. A bigger concern will be, is there enough content to actually convince people to upgrade? Or will most be content with what they already have? As we get closer to the actual release of the game, we should get a better idea of everything Overwatch 2 is offering. For now though, it's going to be interesting to watch how Blizzard plans to support Overwatch 1 over the next year and a half, leading into the release of its sequel. I'm both nervous and excited about Overwatch's future, but overall, I hope that we start to see more companies take a similar approach to sequels in the future. Change is difficult for any industry, and video games are no exception. Games as a service are far and away the most lucrative products right now, but they're also the hardest to get right. Then, when you do finally get that game right, you have to figure out how to make that game's sequel. Some companies are doing it fairly well, and others not so much. But as they learn from and improve upon their and other publishers' mistakes, I think we'll begin to see truly great sequels emerge. Hopefully. Or maybe we'll just get a new Overwatch every year and the heroes will be inside the loot boxes or something. I don't know.